If you think Sylvia Plath was just a sad girl poet who stuck her head in the oven, you don't know the full wild story at all. I'm Mel Z. I talk about death, true crime, and weird pop culture stuff, so if you're a weirdo too, follow me. Most people reduce Sylvia Plath to just a headline, the poet that killed herself by sticking her head in the oven. But that's not her story, that's just how it ended. She was born in 1932 in Boston, Massachusetts, and her father died when she was 8, a loss that never left her. He became a looming figure in her writing, the ghost in her poetry, especially in her most famous and disturbing poem, Daddy. By the time she was in high school, she was already publishing in national magazines. She was brilliant, obsessive, and a perfectionist. She kept a diary, wrote compulsively, and had what many believed was bipolar disorder. At 19, she landed a summer internship at Mademoiselle magazine in New York, which was unheard of at the time. But the pressure and the isolation and the loneliness sent her into a spiral. Not long after returning home, she went missing for days. Her disappearance made headlines, and her mother eventually found her unconscious under the family's porch after she had taken an overdose of sleeping pills. She survived, but barely, and was institutionalized because of it. This experience became the basis for her only novel, The Bell Jar, which was published under a pseudonym in 1963. The Bell Jar is a dark, semi-autobiographical descent into mental illness, misogyny, and the failure of the system to help women who were too much. A few years later, she met Ted Hughes, a magnetic poet that she was instantly attracted to. 4 months after meeting, they were married, but it didn't take long for things to turn sour. Sylvia said that their marriage was toxic and violent at times. Together, they had 2 children. It didn't take long for this miserable, ill-tempered loser, Ted Hughes, to start cheating with Assia Wevill, another poet. He eventually left his family for her and left Sylvia alone with 2 children in an unheated apartment in London during the coldest winter in decades. Despite everything collapsing around her, the betrayal, the brutal winter, the isolation, Sylvia's creativity exploded. In just a few weeks, she wrote most of the poems that would later appear in Ariel, the collection that would make her a literary icon. She'd wake up at 4 a.m. before the kids would get up and channel everything, her rage, her grief, into these mythic, sharp, brutally honest poems. They were controlled, crafted, and powerful. She had once said that she wanted to write poetry that electrocuted people. Some of her most famous pieces, like Lady Lazarus and Edge, came from this last intense burst of creative energy. Her life was falling apart, but her art had never been more alive. On February 11th, 1963, Sylvia prepared breakfast for her sleeping children, put them outside their doors, sealed their doors shut with tape and towels, then locked herself in her kitchen, got down on her knees, and turned the oven on. She was only 30 years old. At the time of Sylvia Plath's death, most British homes were still using coal gas, which was filled with carbon monoxide and was commonly used as a method of suicide. She wasn't the only one. The UK had disturbingly high rates of people dying by suicide this way. In the years after her death, the country started the Great Gas Conversion, a nationwide switch to natural gas, which had much lower levels of carbon monoxide. And this is where something strange happened. Instead of suicides shifting to different methods, the rate actually dropped quite a lot. Malcolm Gladwell talked about it in his book, Talking to Strangers. And the idea is that when certain lethal means are removed, many people don't simply choose another. The moment passes, the method disappears, and because of that, many, many lives were saved. Ted Hughes had already long moved on with Assia Wevill and had had a child with her. But this is where it gets very strange, because 6 years after Sylvia Plath's death, Assia also died by suicide and took her daughter with her. What's shocking about it is not only that, but the way she did it, which was the exact same way Sylvia Plath had done it, by turning on the oven. Ted Hughes inherited Sylvia Plath's estate, all her unpublished work, and he had final say on what happened to everything. He burned her final journals, which he said was to protect his children, but people, especially women, never forgave him. Her gravestone, which regrettably still has his name on it, has been defaced over and over by fans protesting not only his treatment of her while she was alive, but also after her death. To this day, it's still a site of literary pilgrimage and protest. The house where she died at 23 Fitzroy in London still exists. You can visit it, but there are no plaques, no memorials, though people do still leave flowers. Sylvia's 2 children, Frida and Nicholas, were raised by their father after her death. Frida became an accomplished poet and painter, and Nicholas became a marine biologist. In 2009, at the age of 47, Nicholas also died by suicide, a tragic echo of the family's long shadow of loss. Her poetry collection, Ariel, was published after her death and is still considered to be one of the most iconic works of modern literature. Raw and angry, her voice became a battle cry for generations of women who had been called too smart, too intense, too much. Sylvia Plath didn't just leave behind a legacy, she left a cultural reckoning about women, about madness, and about art. What do you think? What's your favorite Sylvia Plath poem? She was the voice of many generations and will continue to be.